was important to bring this concept to Australia because we're nurturing a new generation of leaders. And having taught this in the US for the last 5 years and seen the way these bright young people, suddenly the light goes on in their head and they get it and they say, I'm going to be different. We're educating young future leaders who will go back, influence others, make a difference. So when they're in charge of departments and health departments and hospitals and medical teams, they'll make a real difference. So it's an investment, a really good investment in the future.
I have 2 decades of experience living with different health systems across a number of settings because 2 of my kids live with a serious chronic illness, cystic fibrosis. So our experience has shown me the fundamental importance of patient safety, and particularly the importance of involving patients and families in that for the best care. And while our family has had hundreds, literally hundreds of positive experiences with the health system, particularly the Australian health system over the last 14 years, we also have regularly seen behavior and culture and systems that weren't patient-centered and that didn't put the interests of the patients first. I really believe that the power to change these things lies in the young leaders in this health system.
The patients are the core of why we are in healthcare, and we seem to have moved away from that. We value honesty and openness, and we're here to deliver care. But to understand this, we have to listen to the patient. This leads into how do we hear that? We need to make sure that the communication is relevant. We need to be communicative, and we need to be talking amongst professionals and amongst patients and carers. The nurses spend all this time at the bedside, but the doctors walk in, have a discussion and walk out, only to leave and not hear the whole story. You need to get a complete history. This is one of the messages that we had this weekend. We need to keep driving towards a culture of continual change, continual safety improvement, and patient safety. That is the core of what we are here for. But if we do not continue to drive towards this, the system will fail.
With the American faculty paired with the Australian faculty, we found that their delivery of lessons to the scholars actually mirrored each other and were quite complementary. And it showed that concepts such as transparency were universal, but it also highlighted that on certain aspects, such as graded assertiveness, that there were things for us to improve on in Australia. A skill that we learnt, which has been quite transferable, is graded assertiveness and closed-loop communication. We learnt that calling for help is not actually a sign of weakness, but rather of clinical excellence.
I think everyone has leadership potential. Everyone wants to make a change, and I think it's just about getting their voices heard, getting those people to speak up and getting them to talk about what they want to change and the things they want to implement in their workplaces. Some people have such great ideas, but their voices are so small. It's just a matter of getting them to speak up and get them heard.
The title of it is The Shirtless Dancing Guy. I don't know, some of you may have seen it on the internet. But the important message out of there is while we all can be leaders and we all should be leaders at times, sometimes the most challenging or most courageous person is the first follower. It's that person that says, that's an interesting idea, and that person standing alone with that idea, I'm going to join that person's team and support them. And then you get the second follower, and then eventually the third follower, and as you've got a couple more people following the leader in this case, all of a sudden you start creating momentum. And so I think it's really important to teach people that sometimes we lead, but sometimes we let others lead, and we've got to learn how to be a good follower. So I think there's a balance between the two. If we got everybody leading, I'm not sure if it's going to work out, but we need both leaders and followers.
There's actually 3 things I think that stand out for me when I walk around hospitals and wards and departments. And the first is the style of the people I meet, how they work, how they inspire, how they create followership, but more often than not, how they create a story of how important safety and quality is to what they do every day. And I think the second one is emotional intelligence. You know the people who are emotionally intelligent that you meet. You can connect with them, and they connect in that way to patients. And I think the third one is to understand, as we've done this weekend, the people that you work with who absolutely know what matters, because they talk about it. They set the norm for it. They create the culture, because that's what they emphasise in everything they do and everything they say. I think they're out there. I think as people who manage organisations, we probably need to be very disciplined in going out to seek and find and notice, and then give people the chance to show their potential.
And I also believe very strongly in leadership development, and maybe I'll go on the limb and make the first controversial statement, but I think medical education does a horrible job of developing leaders, and I think nursing education is much better. I spent 4 years at Abbott Labs as a senior leader within Abbott Labs, and I learned more quality and safety I did in the 4 years that I was there than I ever did within my medical education and my experience. It was part of your job to go through leadership development, and it didn't matter where you were in the organization, but they were grooming leaders. And I was going to these leadership development courses. I'm going, wow, why didn't I ever get this in medical school? When I became the curricular dean for the University of Illinois College of Medicine, I said, how could we start bringing this in? And I went to, and I looked at curriculum from law school in the States. Curriculums in law schools develop leaders. And then I looked at curriculum for MBAs, and they develop leaders. And I said, why don't we do this in healthcare? Think about it. Is there really any curricular thread through a young learner's path in medical school, in nursing school, in registrars and residency programs? We don't have it in the States. We're still developing scientists versus really people that understand communication, teamwork, conflict resolution, all these things that my friends took who weren't in healthcare. We have now at MedStar very strong leadership development programs. We put 2,000 of our top people, our managers, directors who've moved to this level through leadership development programs. And we've got a specific course to develop physician and nursing leaders. So building that succession plan of leaders, I think, is important and something we haven't done in healthcare.
Catherine, you're an early young leader. A few years from now, you're getting a lot of leadership experience and a few wins, but you're working in a culture that's not transparent and not particularly open, and where the opportunities to develop leaders are really based on favouritism rather than an open selection process. How would you encourage other people who you see leadership potential in to survive or get on in that sort of a culture? Because those cultures exist, as we know, in health.
From a medical perspective, there's reasonably good supports and structures around interns, and once you reach the registrar level through your colleges, through your training networks, there's some broader support structures. But there's this group in the middle of residents, and this is my third year being a resident, where there's often not that much, and you're quite transient. I work in a large network where it's not uncommon for me to work at 5 hospitals in a year, and because I'm interested in general practice, I've moved between paediatrics, O&G, gen med, surgery. So if you're talking about how do you create a structure around a person in that situation to give them the chance to be recognised, nurtured and supported, I think it is difficult. I think part of it is creating opportunities, and sometimes it is down to allowing people to put themselves forward, but just simply having an opportunity that's accessible to them. So in the case of a junior doctor, that's when they're not working, so weekends and after hours. Or getting people on board to give them a little bit of time off, a half day of conference leave or whatever, to allow them to access those things. Another thing that we've worked on a bit in my health service is connecting junior doctors to each other. So we have a committee with junior doctors from all different professions, and we also we run sessions. They alternate between hospitals once a month where people can come and talk about issues. There's an infrastructure that allows people to connect to each other and therefore share problems, share solutions, share opportunities, and then be connected to people that understand the system.
I think one of the most important, if not the most important role of a leader or even a manager is to nurture and develop your people and your teams. I think you need to know your teams, you need to identify their strengths and weaknesses, you need to do 360s and all those things that help you identify those, and then set a development plan. I think you've really got to know your people and understand where those opportunities are, and they know their strengths and skills. When I was on the business side of healthcare, so to speak, everybody had a development plan, and we had a motto that said, if our person was in the same position 3 years from the day we started working with them, either we failed or they failed.
David Mayer started the conference saying that we will become agents of change, and I think that we are one step closer to doing so. And with people like Kim and organisations like the Clinical Excellence Commission, I feel that there will be a paradigm shift, and it gives us hope as junior doctors and junior nursing staff to make a difference, and that we will stay humble and brave.
I think the people that have come to it, the students and the young doctors, they've learned it's okay to ask questions. They've learnt techniques for questioning authority. Graded assertiveness training was very helpful for them. They've learnt that it's always all about the patient. I think we've cemented that into them. And they've all said, when I go back, I'll make a difference. And one of them said to me yesterday, this has changed my life. Imagine that. Imagine putting on a program that changes a life.